Okay, so well, thank you for joining. And well, today we have a special guest. He's Telly Walker. She's a senior adoption consultant at Salesforce. She's focusing in driving adoption of multi-factor authentication and lightning experience. So, Kelly,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us today and for offering yourself to collaborate with the Granada Developers Group.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. As mentioned, my name is Kelly Walker, and I am a senior adoption consultant, really focusing on multi-factor authentication and securing your org with multiple factors, which we'll get into today. I am sharing my screen, hopefully, now. And with that, you will see my presentation. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
All right. So there is my my Twitter handle and my email if you ever need to get in touch with me. I had previously worked on Lightning Experience, so I often get a lot of questions around that as well. So don't hesitate to reach out with anything that you may have around multi-factor or Lightning Experience. So we do just have to go through the forward-looking statement reminding you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. And with that, we ask that you make any and all purchasing decisions based on what's currently and readily available within the application. Today, though, I want to really dive into multi-factor authentication, which really is nothing forward-looking, but here is the agenda that I have. So really what it is and why it's important, even agnostic or outside of Salesforce, what it means for Salesforce, how to roll it out to your users. And then if we have time, we'll do a demo just to walk through how easy it is to enable MFA and deploy what's called Salesforce Authenticator, a mobile application on your phone, and then wrap up with any questions that you may have. So at Salesforce, we really understand that the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of your Salesforce data is vital to you, our customers, and we really take the protection of that data very seriously. So as we start to see security threats grow more common in the news or around the world, it's essential for our customers really to implement these stronger measures of account access so that you are protecting your data, your customers, and ultimately your business. And it really is shared responsibility. So at Salesforce, we build security into everything we do from the ground up. But our commitment to delivering secure products is really only half the story because of that shared responsibility. As a steward for your business's security, you play a critical role in safeguarding your data and your customers' information. Your Salesforce data is valuable and unfortunately could be the target of what we call bad actors, so individuals who are trying to gain access. A key part of your security strategy really is to safeguard access to your Salesforce user accounts. That's one of the first lines of defense that you can take. And so that's where multi-factor authentication comes into play. And if you're not familiar with MFA, let's kind of dig into what that is and why it's important. MFA is that extra layer of security that is added to your login process, requiring your users to verify their identity with 2 or more pieces of evidence, or what you'll see being factor. So that's really the way that they prove that they are who they say they are. So these factors are something that the user knows, such as their username and password, and then something that they have, like a code from an authentication app on a mobile device or a more physical USB security key. A familiar example of MFA really outside of Salesforce may be an ATM card. So if you ever go to an ATM to pull out cash, you need to have your card and you need to know your PIN. So that really is multiple factors and multi-factor authentication in everyday practice. Same thing may happen when you try to log into a banking app or a credit card app on your phone. They may send you a code through SMS just to verify that you are who you say you are. Now, using usernames and passwords alone does not provide sufficient protection because it's really easy for those bad actors to exploit weak or reuse passwords through common types of attack like phishing and credential stuffing, things that you may hear about happening out there in the world. And just if you don't know, phishing really is one of the most successful attack vectors, and any real survey or research will show that it is the top threat to many different cyber espionage incidents. Now, MFA helps protect against these types of attacks because even if a user's password is stolen, the odds are very low that an attacker will be able to hack the second factor from a user's authentication app or hardware token. And because MFA ties user access to multiple or different categories of authentication factor, it's really much harder for those threats like phishing attacks to succeed, ultimately making your Salesforce environment safer from unauthorized access. Now, you may currently have other authentication methods in place for your Salesforce products. Here's how to weigh those options against the MFA solution. So device activation versus MFA. Now, device activation requires a user to provide a second authentication factor when accessing Salesforce from an unrecognized browser or application. So you may have seen that before. And while device activation provides protection, it has some limitations because it doesn't apply to every login, and users can use email or SMS as factors. We'll get into why those aren't necessarily strong authentication factors in a moment. Device authentication is also sometimes confused with MFA because it requires a second factor, but the significant difference is that MFA requires users to provide a strong authentication factor every time that they log in. So that's one clear way to distinguish. Also, SSO. So if you're using single sign-on, it's a great way to improve your user's login experience because it reduces some of the risks associated with weak or reused passwords. It also allows them to log into frequently used applications, really with one username or password. If your users are regularly accessing those different apps in the course of their day and you're utilizing SSO, we strongly suggest using an identity provider to further secure Salesforce and the other applications that they're logging into. With a well-implemented SSO strategy with that identity provider, you can reduce password-related risks and improve the authentication process, making it easier for your users to log into those applications. Now, if you currently have an IDP or that identity provider and have implemented an SSO solution for Salesforce, you won't be affected if or when Salesforce starts requiring MFA in the future. So that's just something to keep in mind. And just consider, again, that passwords are commonly targeted by attack methods such as phishing. So there's still a chance that your users and their accounts could be compromised if an SSO implementation relies on user credentials alone. So like we say here, we strongly recommend that if you have an SSO solution, that you enable MFA for your identity provider as just an additional safeguard. Now, MFA solutions for Salesforce. As we start to get into this, you may remember that I said a slide or two back that Salesforce supports strong authentication factors only. So that is a factor that a user must have in their possession. That's really what we consider as a strong factor. We don't allow email or SMS text messages. We don't consider those strong authentication factors because email credentials can be compromised and text messages can be intercepted. So again, relying on those factors that a user must have in their possession. We do that because it's a lot harder for bad actors to gain control of an actual mobile device or a hardware security key than it is to infiltrate that email account or hack a cell phone number. And then depending on the Salesforce product that you utilize, we support these types of strong factors. The Salesforce Authentication mobile app Third-party, time-based, one-time password authenticator app, such as Google Authenticator or Authy, and then a physical security key, such as a YubiKey or Google's Titan security key. Really, you can pick and choose between these. You can have multiple of these. You don't have to just have one, because we understand that one may not suit everyone in your org. Really choose the option or options that work best for your business, your users, and your user needs. It's important to understand that today, MFA is not supported on all Salesforce products. These are the clouds that support MFA today. Going forward, though, we really are making it a priority to provide the strongest authentication capabilities across clouds, including delivering MFA functionality for all Salesforce products. So even if you don't see what you're using up there today, know that we are working hard to bring MFA to the other products that we have. And then for purposes of this presentation, really, I just want to let you know that we're focusing on MFA solutions for Salesforce products that are accessed from Lightning Experience or Salesforce Classic. So basically all of the products that you see on this slide, with the exception of Salesforce B2C Commerce. So just another thing to keep in mind there. So with every difference or a new feature that we're rolling out to our users or turning on and enabling in our org, we want to think about really creating a strong rollout strategy so that our users really are not impacted in too much of a way. So here's the path that we've created to MFA. So for manageability, we recommend that you approach your MFA project in 3 phases. So really getting ready, where you're evaluating and planning the work, then rolling out to your users, doing change management and implementation work when launching MFA to your users. And then after the fact, we want to make sure that we're managing for success, making sure that our users are adopting MFA and really giving them the support that they need so that they can quickly and easily get to the jobs that they need to do. For each phase, we suggest breaking things down into a few smaller stages, and we have a set of recommended activities. Really, where we want to focus right now is that get ready, because we understand that many of our customers are not yet on MFA. So that's where we're going to start today. So here are the sub-stages for your MFA project, really kicking it off with the discovery and planning period. So we want to learn, really understand what resources are available, to understand why we strongly recommend using MFA for enhanced login security, what your MFA options are for Salesforce products, and then how your company will benefit when you enable MFA. Really, you'll be having conversations with individuals throughout your organization, and we want you to be able to explain the value of MFA and your options for rolling it out. Then as you start to evaluate MFA for your org, start with an evaluation period, really to identify the requirements that your org and your business users have for an MFA solution, and then gather the data that's key to getting alignment with leadership, developing a plan along the way. So one thing that I just want to touch on here is gathering a user inventory, understanding what users have in regards to roles, permissions, profiles within your organization, and understand who your most privileged users are. So who are your system admins, who have modify all data or add and modify user permissions. Understand if those are really the appropriate level of permissions for your users. And if not, apply the rule of least privilege for your user accounts. So as you start to take inventory and you see that you have 10 or so system admins, understand if all 10 really need to have that much privilege within your org, and if not, really dial it back to what the least amount of privilege they need in your org. And then really plan. So after you complete an evaluation period, you're ready to develop your project plan. And within that plan, we recommend that you include a rollout strategy, a change management strategy, and a support plan so that your users understand the difference that they'll have when they log in next. And then you'll be able to support them should they forget their device at home or forget their YubiKey. How can we get them into their org and working as they need quickly and easily, even without those factors. And then as we move into the next stage, we're starting to roll it out to our users. So this really is the next step beyond getting ready, and one that I won't dive too far into, but I'll definitely provide this presentation after the fact so that when you're ready to roll it out to your users, you can have a good understanding of the different stages that we recommend within the rollout stage. And for you admins within your org, enabling MFA for your users really is a two-step process. There's an administrative function where you are creating the MFA permission set with two-factor authentication for user interface logins, user permission, and then you're assigning the permission set to your users. Now, I just want to touch on here two-factor authentication. We really are moving towards everything being named multi-factor authentication. We're not quite there yet, but they really are synonymous for our purposes here. Two-factor really is just that, two factors, username, password, and some hardware token or one-time password or code that you're given. Multi-factor just means that there may be more than two. So that's really the difference. But for our purposes, they really are the same. And then the second piece to rolling out MFA for your users really is that user portion where they are registering an authentication factor and then using it each time that they log in. So the first step really is to obtain a factor. So understand that right authentication factor for your users. Is it the Salesforce Authenticator? Is it some other Authenticator app? Is it an actual USB token or key? And make sure that those are in your users' hands before you actually roll it out. And then once your users have that and they have the permission set, help them connect the factor to their Salesforce account so that at step 3, when they log in with their username and password, it is easy for them to supply that second factor and log into Salesforce. The one thing that I'll say here, just because I haven't said it yet, is that if your second factor is a mobile app, make sure that your users also have a password or a passcode to access their mobile phone. So even if a bad actor had access to that mobile device, they wouldn't be able to provide that second factor upon a push notification or request. And then once we've rolled it out to our users, we want to manage and enhance our implementation, just making sure that our users are using it, it's working well for them, they feel supported if need be, and then we're optimizing where best we can. If you have questions, this is a great FAQ document, really diving into what MFA is it required for my org? How is it different from two-factor authentication? So something you may want to bookmark, but again, you'll get this stack, so you can always follow the link once provided. Now, do I have about 10 minutes to just demo how to utilize or how to set up MFA?
Yeah, of course you have.
Okay, thank you. So we'll get into a demo, and what this demo will have is Salesforce org. I'll have admin permissions within that org, my mobile device, and then a Salesforce Authenticator app already downloaded from either Google Play or the Apple Store. And then what we'll do is run through creating that MFA permission set, assigning that permission set to our own user, and then registering the Salesforce Authenticator for the first time I log in after receiving that permission set, and then for every time after. I just want to dive into the Salesforce Authenticator app quickly. So if you are not familiar with it, you can understand just a little bit more about what it is. What this is really is a simple, innovative MFA solution, providing a balance between strong security and user convenience. It's a strong authentication factor because it's something, again, that's in your possession, and your users can easily install and connect it to their Salesforce accounts. It's free, it's simple to use, and it really minimizes the impact of MFA on the user experience with push notifications and some other location type auto approval. What your users will see when they try to log into their Salesforce org or your Salesforce org is really a push notification letting them know that someone's trying to log in, the username that they're using, the service that they're logging into, in our case Salesforce, what device they're trying to log into or from, and then what location they're at. So with all this information in hand, a user can either approve because they recognize all of it and they know that they're trying to log into their Salesforce account, or they can deny, knowing that it really is coming from a bad actor. And then just to reiterate what I said before, with this being on your mobile device, we strongly recommend that you also utilize a PIN or biometric requirement for your mobile device so that even if an unauthorized party has access to your phone, they're not able to log in. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to exit the presentation and dive into an org. So here is my org, and as mentioned, we want to first create a permission set for two-factor authentication. Now, if this is the first time that you're trying it, we highly recommend that you utilize a sandbox to test, or an individual that is not the only Salesforce system admin. We just don't want you logging yourself out. So with that, I'll go into permission sets. For the permission set here, we'll just create a new one. And we'll call it the MFA for user logins. Now, this permission is a system permission. So we'll go down to system permissions. And once here, we'll edit. Now, I'm just going to do a quick search or Control F to find factor. And we'll see that there's a couple. So there is Manage Two-Factor Authentication in the API. We're not going to deal with the API today, rather just the user interface. But I do just want to point out here that you can delegate some of these management functions if you are a solo admin and you need help supporting your users once rolled out. So just keep that in mind. The other piece of this is actually giving two-factor authentication to your users. Again, for our purposes, two-factor authentication is the same as multi-factor authentication. And as we move into subsequent releases, you'll see that the naming will align with multi-factor, moving away from that two-factor. But again, we have the ability for two-factor authentication for API logins. We're not going to focus on that today. Rather, we're going to focus on this two-factor authentication for user interface logins. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then again, we recommend that you test this in a sandbox or with someone other than the only admin if you only have one within your org. But for this demo purpose, we're just going to assign it to our user. This is what we call a scratch org. It's like a Trailhead playground, but it's between a Trailhead playground and a dev org. So sorry, I'm not sure why it's running slowly here. We'll try one more thing. I don't think my internet's acting up, but it may be. All right. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to also log in to my phone here.
Kelly, actually, something like this just happened to me today. And if you have installed, all right, it loads, nothing.
Yeah, I may have to work with support if that keeps happening. Okay, so I'm going to add this to my user sign-in, which for this Scratch Org's purposes is just user. Okay, so now I have the permission. So as I go and sign out or log out, I'll see that the next time I try to log in, it's going to prompt me to really enable that second factor. Okay, so I'll log back in here. And at the same time, I'm going to log into my phone. So you can really see side by side what this looks like. Okay. So here I am. I've just tried to log into my org after assigning myself the permission set. And I now see that I need to connect to the Salesforce Authenticator. So with that, I'll open the Salesforce Authenticator app. And I already have a previous Scratch org. I'll just remove this account. What you'll see when you first download the Salesforce Authenticator is that it has a nice little walkthrough tour that I would recommend you doing. And then it also gives you the option to back up your Authenticator accounts with a cell phone number. So something you may want to think about, just in case maybe you're getting a new mobile device or you lose your mobile device, you can always go back and restore your accounts from there. But here I've taken the tour already, and now I'm brought to the Let's Get Started. So I'm going to add an account. And so on my Authenticator app, it gives me a 2-word phrase. And I'm just going to enter that 2-word phrase within my desktop. So coastal culture. And I'm going to connect. Now I'll see on my mobile device that it's giving me the username. I want to make sure that that username is the one that I'm trying to log into and that the service is Salesforce. And it is, so I'm going to select connect on my mobile device. And that's just as easy as it is for your users. So great, an account has been added. You can have multiple accounts here. As you saw, I already had one for another Scratch org. But now if I go ahead and log out again, sorry, just copying and pasting here. We'll see that in the Authenticator, it really just did a push notification, and I can either approve or deny based on the information that I'm seeing. The location services is disabled here, but if I wanted to, as an admin, allow it for my users to automatically allow or approve based on the fact that they're in the same position every time they try to log in, we can do that as well. So I'm just going to approve. And I'm logged in. And if, of course, my phone was turned off, we would see that it would just be a push notification, like a text message or other notification that you may receive on your phone. And that is the two-factor authentication demo. So if we just head back to the deck real quick for wrap up, I know that there is a lot of information that we presented today. Hopefully you have a better understanding of what MFA is and what it means for your Salesforce solutions. And we have a few resources for you to take away today. Again, I'll be sending out this deck and you'll have links and all the information presented. But we also have a great user authentication trail on Trailhead. We also have an admin rollout guide. So a lot of the steps that I went through in the demo are presented in this ebook. So something that you may want to download as you start to consider MFA for your own org. We also have a great video out there on YouTube. So if you need additional assistance or just want to see it in action again, you can watch this great video. And then we have a group dedicated to MFA getting started on the Trailblazer community. So we highly recommend that you join that group and ask any questions that you may have as they come up. And then one other thing that we're doing is we're looking for participants to join the user research program, really to give us feedback on our existing products around MFA, not just MFA, but there are other opportunities for you to really give your feedback. So if you're interested, you can take a picture of this QR code or just go to the link listed below and sign up. So I'll leave that on the screen. If you have any questions, happy to answer them now. I know that we only have a few minutes left. If, of course, something is not addressed today, you can always head to that MFA Getting Started group on the Trailblazer community, and individuals like myself and product managers and the security team are there and happy to assist.
Okay, there is a question in the chat. Well, it's from Husan, who first of all is saying thank you for the presentation, but his question is, can we choose to set it up specifically for when a user is attempting to view reports?
As in like signing in from a VPN? Is that the question?
Actually, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, sorry, to view reports. Sorry, I thought I heard remote. So you can get specific with how you set up your authentication requirements. So for one of my orgs, I have a community and I have to authenticate when I try to just go into the community builder. So I will provide more information on how to provide authentication requirements for specific areas of your org.
Hello, Kelly.
Hello.
Yeah. I'm Sai from India. So my question is like in an org, like in an organization, like suppose we have implemented SAML authentication through our Active Directory, then what's the need of this MFA for that one? Already it is secured with the certificates at both the sides. It's authenticating based on the certificate. Then what's the need of this MFA?
So I'm going to ask the security team just for specifics around Active Directory. But my understanding is that you do not need to implement MFA as you're using the Active Directory for your user's login and password.
But in the slide, you have kept like a best as a best practice, like SSO plus MFA like that. So that's my question.
If Active Directory and MFA would be appropriate?
Okay.
Sorry, I was just confirming. I will ask for specifics for you as it relates to you're utilizing Active Directory, correct?
Yeah, yes,
Oh.
yes, please. Like what happened is like some people like we have implemented like SSO for some customers like what the thing is like they are using Azure Active Directory, so we are implementing this SSO like SP initiated SSO in Salesforce. So we have basically we configured the certificates on both the sides by using like identity provider at both the sides and it's checking. And my doubt is like already it is secured, then what's the need of this MFA?
Yes, and I honestly have not been asked that before, so I'm going to take that back to the security team and just provide a more thorough answer for you.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
Yes.
Okay, there are no more questions. Well, I want to thank you, Kelly, for your time and for collaborating with us today. Actually, I didn't know this Salesforce product, and it has been a nice talk.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'll be available on that community group, as I mentioned. I'll work to get the answers and resources for the questions and provide this deck. So in any way that we can help you, please don't hesitate to reach out.
See you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.